You're putting your reporter hat on. We're going to bring on one of our reporters. In fact, our Eagles insider, Elliot Shore-Parks. He joins us now. And, of course, Elliot Shore-Parks, sponsored by Cozy Jewelers. Step up to the fifth. See, that's color, cut, clarity, carrot, and cozy. Elliot, how we doing?
What up? How you guys doing today?
Well, we're just trying to figure things out because obviously this offensive coordinator
Joe's over here reckless speculating.
I don't even think it's reckless. I just think it's likely. Elliot, all right, before we get into my thought on why this is happening, how would you assess what is happening here? So the last 24 hours or so, McDaniel's taken the Chargers job. And then the one that really hit home to me this morning was Daboll, and according to Diana Rossini, he's either going to take the Bills head coach job, which, of course, if you get the head coach job, you take that, or take the Titans offensive coordinator job and not come here to Philadelphia. How would you assess what's gone on here recently?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the Eagles are striking out. The first two names we heard when Patullo was fired is that they wanted to add a big name. They wanted to add someone that would fully control the offense. And the two names you heard were Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll. Now, we know they interviewed Brian Daboll, and it seems they had some kind of conversation with Mike McDaniel. But I don't think it's completely irrelevant that he interviewed yesterday, and this morning it comes out that he is going to Buffalo or he is going to Tennessee. So maybe it wasn't a fit on either side. I tend to believe Daboll probably, was not interested in this job. And I think we're seeing the complications of the job. Like I said when they fired Patullo, I did not think this was a super attractive job. Now, I'm sure we will talk more about why that is, but I think it's obvious that finding the right coordinator for this job is not an easy one.
So, Elliot, you and I are on the same page with the attractiveness, and I think there's probably 4 or 5 reasons, right? You could go to maybe this offensive personnel in total is in decline a little bit. They're not as young as they were a few years ago, and they're maybe not as explosive. AJ might not be here with a trade, so it may not be what we think it is. So you and I are on the same page there. Elliot, when you unpack why it's not attractive, when you write that list down,
what do you come up with?
Where's Jalen Hurts on that list? Because I keep coming back to, I wonder what these guys think of Hurts and how good they think he could be in the future.
So I don't think he's number one. I do think he is up there, obviously. I think the main issue with this job and why I don't think it is a very attractive one is because generally when you are a top candidate or you are someone that is going for a promotion, right, and you're well thought of in the NFL, you get a lot of say over what your new job is going to look like, right? What type of control will you have? What will your quarterback be like? You'll often get like hey, you're in this for the long haul, right? Like you're gonna help us grow this. None of that is really the case with the Eagles. Jalen is going to be the quarterback. Nick Sirianni is going to be involved in the offense. And the Eagles can say whatever they want, but the proof is in the pudding. And the last 2 first-year offensive coordinators that they hired, they fired after 1 year. And the defensive coordinator, they fired halfway through the season. So there is a proven track record of there not being a long leash here. And I know people will say, well, there's been head coaching jobs. That's true. But if I'm a candidate, I'd rather feel more confident in what I know the team that's hiring me can control. And they can control how long I get to prove that I can do the job. Nobody can control if you'll get a head coaching job or not, right? Like someone could go in there next year, do an unbelievable job, and just not get a head coaching job. It couldn't happen. But what I do know if I'm a candidate is that if I go in there and I struggle in my first year, I want to go somewhere where I think they will not fire me after 1 year. And so I think the biggest issue with this job is there is not a long leash. You're walking into a pressure cooker situation automatically. And then on top of that, you don't get to pick the quarterback, and the head coach is very involved.
Elliot, if you had a guess, how do you think these candidates look at the personnel? Like, we look at them here like, wow, right? Look at this collection of talent, and we can go back to great moments they've had not that long ago. Like a year ago, it's championship game and it's Super Bowl, and they're scoring 1 million points. But if you just look at this year, right, and you're just kind of looking at it with clear eyes, Saquon Barkley went backwards. The offensive line had serious health issues and went backwards, including Lane Johnson, who's 35. A.J. Brown might not be here. And Elliott, regardless of what Jalen Hurts has done in the past, this past year, his success rate was 30th, completion percentage 21st, on-target percentage 24th. How do you think these coordinators are looking at the personnel on offense? Because I wonder if they say, it's not as good as you guys think it is.
Yeah, I think the main concern, if I was an offensive coordinator and I was, potentially going to take this job, the biggest concern for me would be the offensive line. Lane, I assume is going to play next year, but you don't know how much he will play. You don't know if he'll play beyond this year. Landon and Cam are both coming off of bad years. And look, they're both still young. I think that they could rebound from those injuries, but we're not talking about a broken hand that cost these guys like 5 or 6 weeks, right? I mean, Cam had back surgery and Landon came into the NFL with leg issues and is now once again dealing with leg issues. So you're looking at an offensive line plus Tyler Steen, who's, an average NFL player, that the center of the line is a big question. And then when you add the lane question in there, you're talking about 4 out of the 5 starting offensive line positions that if I'm a coordinator and this is my shot, like I'm going to go to Philly with a chance to either get the big, kind of raise I've always been looking for if you're a quarterback coach, pass game coordinator, whatever, or if you're Dable or McDaniel and this is my shot to try to get my next head coaching job. I don't know if the offensive line is strong enough that I feel I'll be able to run what I can run. So I do think the offensive line is a question. I don't think Saquon is. I actually think he played well at the end of the year. He looked spry. I think he's good to go. But Dallas Goedert's a free agent. A.J. Brown might not be there. So, yeah, I think if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm not looking at this offensive side of the ball as I'll have the best set of skill players in the NFL. They might not even be, top 5, top 8. It's really changed in a year.
Elliot, let's go to your now updated rankings of offensive coordinator candidates. So gone is McDaniel. Let's wipe Dable off the board. How do you look at what we know and what they're interested in, the names? How would you kind of rank the top of your board right now?
So the name I would keep an eye out for in getting the job is Mike Kafka. He's not number 1 for me, but that's someone I think people should start to wrap their heads around as the potential guy that could get the job. He's been in the building. He's worked for Andy. He's worked for Doug. He's called plays, not a ton, but he's called them. He does have the interim head coach thing that he did, which is, not a huge deal, but it certainly isn't a negative. And he's familiar with the division. Now, I wouldn't like to hire because I don't think he's bringing any real new ideas. And for me, that's what this is about right now. They need to find somebody that is a bit of a departure from what they've had that can just bring in some new ideas, not going to reshape the offense, not going to come in here and have full autonomy, just somebody that can come in and give some fresh perspective. So for me, Zach Robinson of Atlanta, and I'm sorry to do this to Hugh because I know the reviews out of Atlanta are not great, but he would be my number 1 guy. He's worked with Sean McVay. He's called plays for 2 years. He had talented players in Atlanta, and I know the results weren't phenomenal, but he also had quarterback change, throughout those 2 years. So for me, Zach Robinson would be number 1. And if you don't hire him, then I would go to Jim Bob Cooter. He's been in the building. He's familiar with Jalen. He's familiar with Nick. He was just with Shane Steichen. He called plays in Detroit. So I think that would be number 2 for me after Zach Robinson.
All right, so Zach Robinson, Jim Bob Cooter, you mentioned Kafka there. The other names that I guess as I look at your list here that you put out a little while ago, the other name that is probably the most intriguing just because it's different and it's new would be the Charlie Weiss Jr. one. I mean, he's coming from college football. He doesn't have the NFL experience as other guys do. How real do you think that is? Or is that more of hey, they're interested? And they seem to do this when they have openings. They'll kind of cast a very wide net, and once in a while there's a college person thrown in there, but doesn't mean they're actually a top candidate.
So I view that as more setting the initial relationship, right? This is a chance to talk to him, to get him in the building. And maybe you don't hire him now, but maybe in 2 years you do hire him, or maybe in 3 years when he's ready to come to the NFL, you've already have a relationship with him. And I think that's a benefit of interviewing a bunch of people is you get to build relationships with people. Maybe you don't hire all of them, but now if in a year they're hiring a head coach or 2 years they're hiring an offensive coordinator, you have a relationship with that person. Now, in terms of Charlie Weiss Jr., the actual candidate, I think it would be absurd to hand this offense over to someone that young with 0 NFL experience. If there is one thing the Eagles offense has, there's questions on the line, there's questions on receiver, questions at quarterback. There's one thing they have at strong personalities with a lot of money and a lot of resumes, right? So if I'm AJ, Devontae, Lane, Landon, Jalen, Saquon, am I really listening to a 30-year-old guy that's never been in the NFL? I just don't think you can hand that side of the ball to him. So I think he's a good up-and-coming candidate, but I don't think he fits right now.
Before we let you go, let's just talk about one more name that has not been connected really with them and certainly not a report about an interview yet, but I think kind of fits in the group that we're discussing. Well, Elliot, what do you think about Matt Nagy, former head coach with the Bears, and obviously spent a lot of time with Andy Reid? He was up for the Titans job, didn't get it, obviously went to Robert Saleh. The way you describe some of these guys, play caller, Andy Reid, been in the building, he checks all those boxes, and I'm not saying I think he's great, but as time has gone on, I think that Bears job he did with Mitch Trubisky's aged better than maybe we thought it did in the time. What do you think of Nagy, and could he jump into the mix here?
Yeah, I think he would be like a professional hire, right? I don't think he would come in and reinvent the wheel, but I also think he would come in and be able to handle the job, like the pressure of the job, the press conferences every week, the personalities in the room. Like, I think he would bring all of that. And what I would say, too, to kind of everything we've talked about, but I think is important here, I think fans are putting too much of their hope into this offensive coordinator basket. I get that right now it is the big thing, and who they hire. I'm not saying it doesn't matter at all, but the idea that if they hire Mike McDaniel or Jim Bob Cooter, like, there's not a huge difference there. Nick Sirianni is the offensive head coach of the team. Jalen Hurts is the quarterback that has strengths and weaknesses that the coordinator and the head coach have to build the offense around. So if the offensive line is the same offensive line, it doesn't matter who they hire. But this idea that, like, the season is going to be decided off of who they hire, I just think is factually incorrect. Like, if you're really, really worried about the offensive coordinator hire and you really think they have to get somebody new and fresh and hit a home run, then just say that you don't believe in Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, because ultimately this team will be as good as Jalen and Nick are. That was the case in 2024, and it was the case in 2025 when they weren't as good. So I get the obsession with the hire. Trust me, like, I get it. But it's not the huge impact hire people think it is.
So I want part of me wants to disagree with you, and I was about to say, well, how would we kind of unpack what Vic Fangio was able to do when he came in here 2 years ago? But Elliot, as I was thinking through that to say to you, I did remember that they spent their first 2 draft picks that year on Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and they signed Zach Bond. So, like, obviously Fangio is great, but they also changed the personnel. That's why I keep going back to personnel. I know you're talking about the offensive line. Like, whoever the coordinator is, the personnel needs to play better because they just didn't play well this year. So that means they need to get new offensive personnel, or these guys need to just play better because they weren't great.
Well, and an obvious difference there too is, like, Vic Fangio is able to come in and do a great job because it's just his own thing, right? Like, he's the head coach of the defense. Right. I'm not saying Nick has nothing to do with it, but it is Vic Fangio. And the other important thing is this: like, while he has to coach to his players' strengths and weaknesses to an extent, like, it's very different as a defensive coach to scheme because you can kind of just do what you want. If you're an offensive head coach, you are completely, like, beholden to what the quarterback can do, right? Like, that's 100%. Like, so while everyone said Mike McDaniel is going to come in here and run this, like, crazy offense, no, he wasn't. He wasn't going to do it. Like, we saw videos of him talking about when he got RG3, he had to completely rebuild who he was as an offensive guy because of who the quarterback was. So, again, the offensive coordinator matters. Like, he has to hold meetings throughout the week. He's going to call plays. Like, those things are important. But the offense has looked the same through 5 different coordinators. And I just don't think the idea that a 6th one is going to change things dramatically is true.
I think you're probably right on that, Elliot. It's a point of consternation, but I think you're probably right on it, that it's going to look the same. All right, Elliot, we appreciate you hopping on, and we will be following along and listening as we figure this out. And tonight, 6 o'clock, ESP?
Yes. Go Birds evenings tonight. Zach Berman of The Athletic will be with me, and I'm sure we'll be talking about the offensive coordinator.
Awesome. Excited to hear it. Elliot tonight with Zach Berman, 6 o'clock. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep, talk to you guys later.
There he goes. Elliot Truitt-Park.